The ship door opened with a soft hiss and stepped onto the Galactic Unity Station for the first time. She carried a heavy bag on her back and a small earthenware pot in her arms. Behind her pulled two large metal boxes filled with cooking supplies. "This is it," said, looking around at the massive metal hallways. Thousands of aliens walked past them. Some had 6 legs, others floated in the air. A few looked like giant insects, and one species seemed to be made entirely of purple smoke. Stood next to her and watched the aliens with wide eyes. I never thought I would see so many different beings in one place. Smiled, and soon they will all taste Korean food. They had traveled for 3 months to reach this station. Earth had sent them as part of a cultural exchange program, was a chef, one of the best in Seoul, and had worked beside her for 10 years. The government wanted them to share human culture with the galaxy, and for culture meant food. A tall, insect-like creature approached them. It stood over 2 meters high and had 4 arms and large black eyes. Its voice came out flat and mechanical. "I am supervisor. I manage the cafeteria operations on this station. You are the human food preparers." "We are chefs," corrected politely. "I am this is." Looked at the earthenware pot in her arms. "What is that object?" "It belonged to my grandmother. I use it to make soup." Made a clicking sound. "Interesting, follow me. I will show you the food preparation area." They walked through the station for 20 minutes. Noticed that every species they passed looked tired. Their movements were slow. Their eyes were dull. Even the floating smoke creatures seemed to hang low in the air. Finally, they reached the cafeteria. It was enormous, bigger than any restaurant had ever seen. Thousands of tables filled the space, and aliens of every kind sat eating in silence. But when looked at what they were eating, her heart sank. Every single being was eating the same thing. Small gray cubes sat on every plate. They looked like wet cement. No color, no smell, nothing. "What is that?" whispered. "That is Nutrient Standard 7, said proudly. "It contains all necessary vitamins, minerals, and proteins for 47 different species. It is efficient. It is safe. It is perfect." Watched a small furry alien put a gray cube in its mouth. The creature chewed slowly, its face completely empty of any emotion. "But does it taste good?" asked. Tilted its head. "Taste? I do not understand. Food is fuel. Bodies need fuel to function. Nutrient Standard 7 provides that fuel. What more could be needed?" Felt something break inside her chest. She thought about her grandmother's kitchen back in Korea. She remembered the smell of bubbling on the stove. She remembered her mother's hands making kimchi every autumn. She remembered sitting with her family around a table full of colorful dishes, laughing and talking and sharing. Food was never just fuel. Food was love. Food was memory. Food was life. "I want to cook something," said suddenly. His eyes clicked. "That is not permitted. All food on this station must meet safety regulations. Human food has not been tested." "Just one meal," insisted. "A cultural demonstration. You can watch everything I do. If anyone gets sick, I will take full responsibility." Was quiet for a long moment. Its 4 arms crossed over its chest. "The Galactic Council requires all cultural exchange participants to share their traditions," said carefully. He had read the regulations many times. "Food is a human tradition. If you prevent us from cooking, you would be violating Section 47 of the exchange agreement." Made an unhappy clicking sound. "Very well, 1 meal, 1 demonstration. I will observe everything. If any substance appears dangerous, I will stop you immediately." Bowed her head, "Thank you." They were given a small corner of the giant kitchen. Everything around them was automated. Machines pressed nutrient paste into cube shapes. Robots sealed packages. Nothing was touched by living hands. Set down her grandmother's pot and opened her supply boxes. Inside were dried anchovies, chunks of pork, blocks of tofu, and most importantly, A large container of bright red kimchi. The smell of fermented cabbage filled the air immediately. Jumped back. What is that odor? Is there a chemical leak? That is kimchi, said calmly. Fermented vegetables. Koreans have been eating it for thousands of years. Fermented, voice became sharp. Fermentation involves bacteria. Bacteria is a controlled biological agent under galactic law. You cannot use this. Looked at the supervisor with steady eyes. This kimchi was made by my mother. She sent it with me from Earth. It is safe. It is healthy. And it will make the best kimchi this galaxy has ever tasted. She turned away from and began to cook. Stood beside her, cutting tofu into perfect squares. He knew better than to argue with when she had that look in her eyes. He had seen it many times before. It was the look she got when she was about to change something forever. Behind them, watched with suspicious eyes and held a scanner ready to detect any dangerous substances. And in the cafeteria, thousands of aliens continued to eat their gray cubes in silence, completely unaware that their lives were about to change. Placed her grandmother's pot on the heating element and smiled. "Let us begin," she said softly. The smell traveled through the station like a living thing. It moved through air vents and crawled under doors. It floated into offices and sleeping quarters. It wrapped around beings who had never experienced anything like it before. Within 1 hour, a crowd had gathered outside the kitchen. "What is happening in there?" asked a tall being made of blue crystal. "My sensors are detecting something impossible." "It smells like danger," whispered a small furry creature with 8 eyes, "but also like something wonderful." Inside the kitchen, stirred her grandmother's pot. The kimchi was almost ready. Red broth bubbled around chunks of pork and tofu. The fermented cabbage had softened perfectly. Steam rose into the air, carrying a smell that was spicy and sour and deeply savory all at once. Stood in the corner, scanner beeping constantly. "I am detecting over 40 different chemical compounds in that liquid. Several of them are classified as irritants." "Those are flavors," said simply. "Would you like to try some?" "Absolutely not." Was preparing a second dish at another station. He had started cooking the instant noodles that every Korean person grew up eating. But his version was not simple. He added soft-boiled eggs, sliced green onions, and a handful of roasted sesame seeds. The yellow noodles swam in golden broth. "The demonstration will begin in 10 minutes, he told. She nodded and began preparing the final ingredient. She reached into her supply box and pulled out a container of the red pepper flakes that gave Korean food its famous heat. The powder was bright red, almost glowing. Sprinkled it into the color deepened, the smell intensified. At that exact moment, the kitchen door burst open. A creature that looked like a giant jellyfish floated into the room. Its transparent body pulsed with soft light, and its voice echoed from somewhere inside its form. "I am Ambassador Trill," it announced. "I have come to investigate reports of unusual activity." Rushed forward. "Ambassador, I have the situation under control. The humans are conducting a cultural demonstration. Everything is being monitored." Ambassador Trill floated closer to the pot. Its body changed colors as it approached, shifting from blue to purple to pink. "I have not experienced external input in 40 years, the ambassador said quietly. "Not since the flavor incident of the 3rd cycle, but this smell is reaching me somehow. What is this substance?" "It is called kimchi," said, "a traditional Korean soup. Would you like to taste it?" "I do not taste things anymore. My species absorbs nutrients through our outer membrane, but I am feeling something I have not felt in a very long time." The ambassador's colors shifted faster. "I believe humans call it curiosity." The demonstration began. Had set up a small table with bowls and spoons. 20 aliens from different species had volunteered to participate. They sat nervously in their seats, looking at the red soup in front of them. "This food may look strange," told them. "It may smell strong. It may even hurt a little when you eat it, but I promise you it is made with love, and that is something worth experiencing." The first alien to try was a being covered in gray scales. It lifted the spoon to its mouth with shaking hands. The red broth touched its tongue. The creature's eyes went wide. Its scales changed from gray to bright orange. It opened its mouth and made a sound that no translator could interpret. Then it grabbed the bowl with both hands and drank the entire thing in 3 seconds. "More," it gasped. "I need more." One by one, the other aliens tried the food. Their reactions were all different. A plant-based being named Florian turned pale and had to sit down. A creature made of living rock declared that the spice was making its minerals vibrate with joy. 2 small beings who shared one body began arguing about whether the tofu was the best part or the worst part. But the most dramatic reaction came from Ambassador Trill. The jellyfish ambassador had been floating near the table, watching. Finally, curiosity became too strong. It extended one thin tentacle towards and dipped the tip into the golden broth. The ambassador's entire body froze. Its color stopped shifting. For a moment, worried that something had gone terribly wrong. Then Ambassador Trill began to glow. Bright white light poured from its form. Its voice came out as a whisper that somehow filled the entire room. "I can feel it. After 40 years of nothing, I can feel something again. The warmth, the salt, the depth. It is like remembering a dream I forgot I had." The ambassador floated higher, light still pouring from its body. "What is this magic?" "It is not magic," said with a gentle smile. "It is just noodles." But even as she spoke, disaster was approaching. Had left his container on the counter. A small cleaning robot, programmed to remove any foreign substances from the kitchen, detected the red powder. Its sensors could not identify the substance. It classified the as a potential biohazard. Within seconds, alarms began screaming throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Doors slammed shut. A mechanical voice announced that the cafeteria section was under emergency lockdown due to contamination. Clicked angrily. "I knew this would happen. Your human food has triggered a security response." Looked at the chaos around her. Aliens were running in every direction. The cleaning robot was spraying foam on everything. Ambassador Trill was floating in circles, still glowing and confused. But did not panic. She walked calmly to her grandmother's pot, picked up her spoon, and continued to stir. "The soup will burn if I stop now," she said simply. "Someone should probably fix those alarms." Sighed and went to find the security office. It was going to be a long night. The lockdown lasted 6 hours. When it finally ended, supervisor delivered the bad news. "Your cooking privileges have been suspended," the insect said, 4 arms crossed tightly. "The Galactic Safety Committee has classified human cuisine as a potential hazard. You may remain on the station, but you may not prepare food." Stood in silence. Her grandmother's pot had been taken away for testing. Her ingredients had been sealed in a containment unit. Everything she had brought from Earth was now locked behind security doors. "I understand," she said quietly. But she did not understand, and she did not accept it. That night sat in her small sleeping quarters with. The room was cold and gray, like everything else on the station. "What do we do now?" asked. Before could answer, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find 2 people standing outside. One was a Korean scientist who worked in the station's biology lab. The other was a young man with messy hair and oil stains on his uniform. "I am," the young man said with a grin. "I fix things on this station. Engines, computers, air systems. If it is broken, I make it work." Stepped inside. "We heard what happened. We want to help." "Help how?" asked. His grin grew wider. "This station has over 200 cargo bays. Most of them are empty. Some of them are forgotten. The computer does not even track them anymore. Began to understand. You want us to cook in secret. I want you to do more than that, said. She pulled out a small device and showed them a screen filled with messages. Look at this. After your demonstration, I received over 300 messages from aliens asking where they can get more human food. They are desperate. They said your soup changed something inside them. One meal, said slowly. One meal did all that. Food is powerful, said. She had always known this. Her grandmother had taught her that a good meal could heal broken hearts, mend old arguments, and bring strangers together like family. But she never imagined it could work on aliens too. We will need supplies, she said. I can get them, answered. I know people who know people, trading networks that do not show up on official records. And the smell, asked. The smoke detectors, the cleaning robots. Waved his hand. Leave the technical problems to me. I will build you a kitchen that nobody will ever find. And so the underground restaurant was born. Cargo Bay 247 was deep in the oldest part of the station. The lights barely worked. The walls were rusted. Nobody had visited it in 50 years. Transformed it in 3 days. He installed hidden air filters that captured cooking smells before they could spread. He rewired the local sensors to ignore heat and smoke. He even built a false wall that looked like solid metal but could slide open with a special knock. Set up her cooking station with the supplies had gathered. It was not as good as her original equipment, but it was enough. She could make japchae and her famous spicy rice cakes. The first customers came on a Tuesday night. They were 5 beings from a species called the Collective. They shared one mind across 400 bodies, but only 5 of them could sneak away without being noticed. They entered the cargo bay with nervous, identical movements. We heard there is food here, they said in perfect unison. Real food, we wish to experience it. Served them samgyeopsal, thick slices of pork belly grilled over an open flame. She showed them how to wrap the meat in lettuce leaves with garlic and paste. The 5 bodies took their first bites at the same moment. Then something strange happened. One body smiled, one body frowned, one body closed its eyes in pleasure, one body made a face like it had eaten something sour, and one body started crying. This is impossible, they said, but their voices were no longer perfectly matched. We are having different reactions. We are feeling different things. That is normal, said gently. Everyone tastes food differently. Even in the same family, people have different favorites. The Collective stood frozen. For the first time in their existence, they were not in complete agreement. 400 minds connected across the station were suddenly arguing about whether the pork needed more salt. This is very disturbing, they said, but they did not leave. They stayed and ordered more. Word spread through secret channels. Every night more customers appeared at the hidden door. They paid with whatever they had, rare crystals, useful information, promises of favors. Did not care about payment. She just wanted to cook. She learned to adjust her recipes for different species. Some could not handle spice, so she made mild versions. Others had no teeth, so she created soft foods they could swallow whole. A few absorbed nutrients through their skin, so she developed special sauces they could bathe in. Kept careful records of every customer. He noted what they liked, what they could not eat, and what made them return night after night. Studied the effects of human food on alien biology. She discovered something amazing. Human cuisine did not just taste good. It actually improved health. The complex flavors stimulated parts of the brain that nutrient cubes never touched. Beings who ate at the underground restaurant reported better moods, clearer thinking, and stronger connections with others. You are not just feeding them, told one night. You are healing them. But success brought danger. Supervisor had noticed changes in the station. Productivity was increasing. Complaints were decreasing. Beings who had been cold and distant were suddenly talking to each other, sharing meals they had smuggled from somewhere unknown. The insect supervisor began to investigate. One evening, after the restaurant had closed, found a single grain of rice on the floor of the corridor outside cargo bay 247. She picked it up and held it in her palm. Somewhere in the station was getting closer to the truth. "We need to be more careful," told her team that night. But even as she said it, she knew she would not stop. She could not stop. These beings needed her food. They needed to remember what it felt like to truly eat. And would feed them, no matter what the rules said. Had a dream. She wanted to share Korean barbecue with the entire station. One big meal where everyone could sit together, cook their own meat, and experience the joy of eating as a community. "That is a terrible idea," said when she told him. "It is a wonderful idea," replied. "We are running a secret restaurant. How can we invite 3,000 beings to dinner without getting caught?" Smiled, "I have a plan." Her plan involved a young Korean woman who worked in the station's communication center, had been a regular customer at the underground restaurant for weeks. She loved the so much that she once cried while eating it. "I need you to send a message," told her. "A private message to everyone who has eaten at our restaurant. Tell them to come to cargo bay 247 tomorrow night for a special event." Nodded eagerly. "I can do that. How many people?" "All of them." Fingers moved across her control panel. She typed the message carefully and prepared to send it to the 200 beings on her private list. But made a mistake. Instead of pressing the button for private messages, she pressed the button for station-wide broadcast. The message went to every single being on the Galactic Unity Station. "Oh no," whispered. Within minutes, the entire station was talking about the mysterious dinner invitation. Beings who had never heard of human food were suddenly curious. Beings who had been searching for the source of the delicious smells were finally getting answers. And beings who were loyal to station rules were reporting the message to supervisor. Received the news from, who came running into the cargo bay with panic in his eyes. "Everyone knows," he gasped. "The whole station, they are all coming, 3,000 beings, maybe more." Stood very still for a moment, then she took a deep breath. "Then we will feed them all," she said. "That is impossible," said. "Nothing is impossible, we just need more meat." The next 20 hours were the most intense of his life. Contacted every trader he knew, gathering hundreds of kilograms of meat from across the station. Calculated which species could safely eat which foods. Organized cooking stations across the entire cargo bay. Feeling guilty about her mistake, recruited volunteers to help serve. When the doors opened the next evening, the crowd stretched back through 3 corridors. They came in waves, tall beings and short beings, beings with scales and beings with feathers, beings made of crystal and beings made of gas. They filled the cargo bay until there was barely room to stand. Stood at the center of it all. Around her, dozens of small grills had been set up on tables. The meat was ready. The vegetables were cut. The sauces were prepared. "Welcome to Korean barbecue," she announced, her voice amplified through a speaker had rigged. "Tonight you will not just eat, you will cook, you will share, you will become a community." She showed them how to place the meat on the hot grill. She demonstrated how to turn it at the right moment. She taught them to wrap the meat with lettuce and rice and sauce. The beings watched with wonder, then they began to cook. Smoke rose from hundreds of grills. The smell of cooking meat filled the air. It was overwhelming, it was glorious. But then things started to go wrong. A species from the outer planets had never seen fire before. The sight of open flames triggered their ancient survival instincts. They began running in circles, screaming warnings about predators. The smoke was too thick. A group of small beings who breathed through their skin started coughing and choking. A plant-based delegate named Florian wandered too close to the salad station. When she saw other beings eating raw vegetables, she fainted directly into a bowl of lettuce. The collective, all 400 of them now present, could not agree on anything. They were arguing so loudly that nearby beings could not hear themselves think. And then the doors burst open, and Admiral arrived. Admiral was the supreme commander of the station. The Admiral was ancient, a crystalline being who had lived for 800 years, did not eat, did not sleep, existed only to maintain order and follow rules. "What is the meaning of this chaos?" the Admiral demanded. The crystal body pulsed with angry red light. "Who is responsible?" Everyone pointed at. The Admiral floated toward her. Up close, could see that was beautiful. The crystal body had thousands of tiny facets, each one catching the light from the grills and reflecting it in rainbow patterns. "You are the human chef," said. "You have violated 17 station regulations. You have created a safety hazard. You have disrupted the peace. Give me one reason why I should not shut this down immediately." Looked at the Admiral. She looked at the chaos around her. Beings were running and arguing and coughing and fainting. But she also saw something else. She saw beings from species that had been enemies for centuries sitting at the same table. She saw creatures who had never spoken to each other learning to cook together. She saw the collective slowly calming down as they realized that disagreement was not the end of their existence. She saw community being born. Picked up her tongs and lifted a perfect piece of bulgogi from the nearest grill. The meat was caramelized on the outside, tender on the inside, glistening with sauce. "Try this," she said to Admiral. "I do not eat. I absorb energy through radiation." "Try it anyway." The Admiral stared at her. Nobody had ever spoken to this way. Nobody had ever offered anything. Slowly reached out with a crystalline hand and took the meat. The Admiral raised it to where a mouth would be on a normal being. And something impossible happened. The meat seemed to dissolve into the crystal. The bulgogi's essence spread through the Admiral's body like light spreading through a prism. Its facets began to glow, not with anger, but with something else entirely. For the first time in 800 years, Admiral began to cry. Crystal tears rolled down a crystal face. "What is this feeling?" the Admiral whispered. "This warmth, this sweetness, this memory of something I never had." "That is flavor," said gently. "That is what food can be." The Admiral floated in silence for a long moment. The entire cargo bay had gone quiet, watching. Then Admiral spoke. "This human cuisine is hereby classified as a Class 7 cultural phenomenon. It will not be prohibited. It will be studied. It will be understood." The Admiral turned to face the crowd. "Continue your meal." The crowd erupted in cheers. Smiled and went back to her grill. There was still a lot of cooking to do. 6 months had passed since the Great Barbecue Incident. The Galactic Unity Station was no longer the same place. Stood at the entrance of the main cafeteria and smiled at what she saw. The gray walls had been painted with warm colors. Long tables filled the room, and beings of every species sat together, sharing food and conversation. The smell of cooking filled the air, a mixture of spices and herbs from 100 different worlds. The nutrient cubes were still available. A small station in the corner dispensed them for beings who genuinely preferred them or whose biology required them. But most of the cafeteria was now dedicated to real food. And not just human food anymore. After the Korean barbecue night, something unexpected happened. Other species started remembering their own forgotten food traditions. An insect species called the revealed that they once made honey from flowers on their home world. A fish-like people called the admitted they used to ferment seaweed in underground caves. Even the gas-based beings confessed they had ancient recipes for absorbing certain mineral combinations in specific patterns. Had inspired them all. Now the cafeteria had 12 different cooking stations. Human chefs worked beside honey makers and fermentation experts, had built a special sealed room where the gas beings could prepare their mineral blends without affecting others, had created a database of every recipe from every species, carefully noting which foods were safe for which beings. "You started a revolution," said, standing beside. "All you wanted to do was make soup." "Soup is powerful," replied. They watched as a young crystalline being sat down at a table with a tentacled creature and a member of the collective. The three of them were sharing a large pot of the army stew that's grandmother used to make with leftover ingredients. "Do you remember when beings here could not even look at each other?" asked. "When every species stayed separate and afraid?" Nodded. "Now look at them." The crystalline being was teaching the tentacled creature how to use chopsticks. The collective member was explaining that their hive mind had voted 267 to 133 in favor of adding more cheese to the stew. Food had brought them together. Across the cafeteria, supervisor sat at a private table. The tall insect was no longer angry. The clicking sounds made were softer now, almost friendly. In front of the supervisor sat a small container of japchae, the sweet potato noodles that had taught to love. Still remembered the day had apologized. "I was wrong," the insect had said, standing in the kitchen with 4 arms hanging awkwardly. "I thought food was only fuel. I thought efficiency was everything. But I watched my station change. I saw beings become happy. I felt myself become happy," had paused. "I do not understand how noodles can do this, but I am grateful." Now was one of their best customers. The supervisor came every day for japchae and stayed to watch others eat. Ambassador Trill floated through the cafeteria, its body constantly shifting through beautiful colors. The jellyfish diplomat had regained all its senses after 40 years of numbness. Trill said that had reconnected something inside that had been broken for too long. These days, the ambassador spent most of its time floating near the cooking stations, absorbing flavors through its membrane and writing poetry about each new taste. Trill's food poems had become famous across the galaxy. Even Admiral had changed. The ancient crystalline commander had commissioned a statue for the station's memorial garden. It was not a statue of a great leader or a famous battle. It was a statue of a pair of chopsticks, 3 meters tall, made of polished silver. Beneath it, a plaque read, "In honor of the humans who taught us to taste again." Visited the statue every day. Sometimes saw the Admiral standing before it, facets glowing with soft light, lost in thought. Admiral had asked once, "What do you think about when you look at the statue?" Had been silent for a long moment. "I think about all the years I spent existing without living," the Admiral finally said. "I absorbed energy, I followed rules, I maintained order, but I never felt anything. Your food showed me what I was missing." "What were you missing?" "Connection, joy, memory, all the things that make life worth living." His crystal body had pulsed with warm light. "I was 800 years old before I understood why beings eat together. It is not about nutrition. It is about sharing something precious with others." Now, standing in the cafeteria, felt proud of everything they had built. But she also felt something else, a small sadness that lived in her chest. Noticed, he always noticed. "You miss home," he said. "Yes," looked at all the aliens around her. "I love this place. I love these beings, but sometimes I miss sitting in my grandmother's kitchen, eating her while she told me stories." "Your grandmother's was the best." "It was, and now it only exists in my memory." Touched the earthenware pot that had finally been returned to her after months of testing. "This pot is all I have left of her." Was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out 2 small bowls. "I made something this morning," he said. "I have been working on the recipe for months, trying to get it exactly right." He ladled soup from a pot he had hidden behind the counter. The smell hit immediately. Her eyes went wide. That smells like your grandmother's recipe. She taught me before she passed away. She made me promise to remember it. He handed a bowl. I have been saving this for the right moment. Took the bowl with shaking hands. She lifted the spoon to her lips. The taste was like coming home. The deep, earthy flavor of fermented soybean paste, the soft tofu and crisp vegetables, the warmth that spread through her entire body. Her grandmother was there in every bite. Tears rolled down her face, but she was smiling. Around them, the cafeteria continued its joyful noise. Aliens of every kind ate and talked and laughed. Cooking smoke drifted through the air. The station hummed with life. "Do you think grandmother would be proud?" asked. Looked at the crystalline beings learning to use chopsticks. She looked at the collective arguing happily about seasoning. She looked at Ambassador Trill floating in circles and writing poetry about vegetables. "I think she would say we need more gochujang," replied. They laughed together, sitting in a cafeteria on a station floating in the middle of space, surrounded by beings from 100 different worlds, all brought together by the simple magic of food. The galaxy was no longer cold and empty. It was warm. It was full. It was fed.